Welcome back to Unquiet You. Today we are going to talk about the step parent role, how I navigated it, some tools that I used in the very beginning, and some tools that I used along the way to help other people in this situation. Of course, I will start off by saying, like, every step family is very different. Every step parent is very different. You have some who see kids every other weekend. You have some it's every other week. You have some who, it's full time. You have some it's once a month, whatever it is. Like, every dynamic is different. So the things that worked for me may or may not work for you, but this is a topic I get asked a lot about. Being a stepmom was really important to me, and I loved that role in a way, but there were a lot of challenges. And so I get asked this a lot about, like, how did I handle it? What would I do? And so I figured I would talk a little bit about it and kind of explain what worked the best. So I became a full-time stepmom to 5 kids back in 2010 when I married their father, and he had full primary custody. The mom saw them every other weekend at the time. And I honestly didn't know what step parenting was. Of course, there's like Cinderella, the Disney movie. And then my mom was a stepmom too, but my step siblings lived way out of state. They were a little bit older. And the only time I knew that relationship was weird was I had a stepsister who came and lived with us at 15. And I remember thinking, like, my mom is so mean to her. And she come to find out she only lived with us to see if my dad would buy her a car for her 16th birthday. And when he didn't, she left again. But I remember at the time thinking, like, man, why is my mom so mean to her? And it wasn't that she was mean to her. I think it was like a shock to my mom. And I think she was very mean to my mom. So I think it was my mom learning boundaries of the step parent world. And two, it was just different. And so, that's one thing. As I became a stepmom, I had a lot more appreciation for my mom in that role and how hard that was for her. I was younger at the time. No, I was actually older, but I was young. I was 18 or so. And so I didn't really fully understand it, but that's one thing I wish I probably did know more about back then, because she actually deserved more support. So when I became a stepmom, I honestly just thought it was going to be like a stepmom role. I was like, I'm going to be the fun one that, like, gets to take them and do things. And they have a dad, they have a mom. So, I parent my child the way I parent my child. We kind of had our beliefs, our morals, our patterns, the things that we did. And I just assumed, I think, that it would all just mesh well together and flow. And in the beginning, I think it did, because I was able to be the fun one. I was, his kids had not experienced a lot of things that we had done or experienced. Even as simple as shopping, like, they didn't go shopping a lot. They didn't get to do a lot of things that we had done. And so the first few months, it was fun. We did a lot of fun things together, blending the kids and doing that sort of role. And I thought, oh, this will be a no-brainer. Like, if we get married, like, this is going to be easy. And then it wasn't up until the day of our wedding when everything shifted. And I was like, oh, this is what step parenting is. And there was a lot of drama with one of his oldest child, just a lot of, like, unnecessary drama where she was trying to get her mom involved. And that was kind of the beginning of me realizing that, oh, wait, like, this isn't going to be rainbows and butterflies. And this is a lot of crap we got to deal with. The constant back and forth of emotions with his kids. And, like, when they would go visit their mom, they would leave the house very angry and come home very angry. And I couldn't understand what that was like. And it was just so many things. And so not only did I have, their mom, I actually thought when we first got married, I was like, I think she just needs a break. Like, she had 5 kids at home full time. That's exhausting. I had 1 kid and I worked full time, but, like, that was exhausting. And so I kind of felt sorry for her. And I remember my husband's family would tell tons of stories about how she was a parent and the things that she would do. And I just really struggled believing it because, I mean, they had 5 kids and I just didn't understand as a mom, like my children, my child was like my everything. And so when I tried to come in, we had an agreement from the very beginning that, like we just didn't discipline the same, John and I. And so we kind of had an agreement that like he would do the disciplining. Like I was not going to spank his kids. He was not going to spank my kids, that sort of thing. And, so in the beginning, once I was home full time with the kids, there were a lot of things coming up and there was a lot of hatred and a lot of anger coming out of the kids, and it would show up in different ways. Like one kid would purposely like take my stuff and hide it. The other kid would purposely stand in front of my face and like say things to me to make me mad. And then the other kid would cry if they didn't get the attention. And then, you know, my child's over here like a little confused about all of it because this was not how we functioned. And pretty much immediately after we got married, started the court battles. It was getting served every day. Like I felt like every day we were getting new paperwork from an attorney and having to hire attorneys and go meet with an attorney. And the mom was complaining about this, or the kid would make up a lie about this. And then it was just constant chaos. And I kept thinking like, I don't know my role in all this. And I remember having a conversation early on where the daughters were invited to a wedding with with what became my mother-in-law. And she was like, well, you need to go buy them clothes. You need to have them ready. But then she wanted to dictate the schedule and she wanted to dictate how everything works. And I was like, wait, so I'm expected to do all this, but also I'm like not expected to have any say in anything. Like, I don't know how this is going to work out. And that was part of what I also didn't realize getting married, right? I didn't realize like, yes, we have the ex to deal with and the emotions of all the children at the different, you know, they were all at different ages. They were all going through their own things. I had my own child going through his own emotions. And then we were a newly married couple, and then we were pregnant, and it was just all the emotions in our house. But also I had a mother-in-law who thought she should have control and like she should have a right to my children. And that's not how I parented. I had already created these boundaries within my family that, you know, as the parent, I make the rules and I decide what's going to happen. I was very quickly kind of forced into, I was the one who talked to the teachers. I was the one who was expected to take them to all the sporting events and like show up for them and make sure they had all the school supplies. Like all of these things started happening, and it was almost like I was expected to be a mom full time to these kids, but I had no say as their mom, meaning that if their mom wanted to like step in and say something, she had first dibs. Or if my mother-in-law decided she was going to try and control the situation, she had first dibs. And it was very exhausting because having the expectation of all these people on you saying like, you're the one who has to do all the work. You're the one who has to act as if you're the mom and treat all of these children as if they are yours. But you get no say in anything that happens. You get no say in what they do. You get no say in what we decide for them. It was almost like I felt like I was just there to work. And I really found it a struggle because I grew to love these kids very deeply, very fast. And I could see their needs and desires that other people couldn't. But yet I wasn't allowed to voice that. I wasn't allowed to really put my foot down in the beginning. And it was really hard. But the constant, I just kept telling myself, like, I don't think it's always going to be this way. I think it's going to change. You know, we're going to create our own family dynamic. And as things started shifting and I started to gain a little bit more control of, hey, this is our house. This is how we function. I felt better. I think the kids responded better. But the court battles were out of control and the phone calls were out of control. The emails were like so mean. And something hit me one day. I remember early on, we had this huge calendar in the kitchen, and we would write on it like when they would go visit their mom and all the things. And then, sometimes she would cancel last minute, or she would only keep them one day instead of the whole weekend. And we were taking notes, and but the emails were coming. It was like if she was upset about something, we would get this nasty email and all the things. And one day I was like, we got to start documenting this. We've got to keep up with every single piece of correspondence. And she would call my ex all the time, or call my husband and just go off on things. And he was very much he's a very easygoing person. He doesn't like to have confrontation or fight. But it would get so worked up because a lot of times it would impact me. It would impact my schedule. Like if I had scheduled something to do with the kids, and then on a whim, she decides, oh, I'm going to come see the kids for an hour. I had to cancel my plans for her to say she might show up. And I was really getting frustrated, and I'm like, this cannot work anymore. Like I can't function this way. Either I didn't want to be their quote unquote mom, but I also was their mom in a way. And they viewed me like we were a family, and my kid was included in everything. Like it was a whole system. And so I just was getting tired of being told, like, you're expected to show up as the mom, be the mom, do all the mom things, but you literally have no rights. And so we just started documenting. We started documenting every email. We put a really hard rule in place that there were no more phone calls. If she needed to say something, she could text it or email it. And we were just printing off everything. I printed off sports schedules. I printed off emails with sports schedules. One of the things going into this, I remember, I think this was maybe year 1 or 2. We had decided, my husband and I, that we would never speak ill of their mother in front of them. It was just something I thought was completely unnecessary. And it just puts more emotions on in their brains that they didn't need. They were kids. And this was a lot to navigate as a whole. So, we would never speak ill, but one of the things I always told all of my kids, and I still to this day, is that I will tell you the truth. And if there's a direct question asked to me, I will always give you a direct answer, even if it's not an easy answer. I needed truth in my life, and I wanted my children to always know that what I said was the truth, that I wasn't covering up for things or trying to make like stories up for them. And it just was too confusing to them. So that was a rule that I put in place very early on, was that I would never say anything ill about their mother, but I would tell the truth. And so when we started documenting the court battles were coming in, and it was like extended, and we had to get a mediation. I mean, it's just always something. And, it was really more for control than anything. I think that like, it was just, I don't know if it was like to keep us miserable. I don't really know what the point of it was, but I could see my role as a step parent shifting, and I was really becoming resentful. And we would document everything. And I had all the kids are in sports. The 6 younger kids are in sports, and they would come home from their moms and miss soccer or miss an event or something. And I would say, well, why did you not go to soccer? Why did you not do this? And they would say, well, my mom said you never sent the schedule, or my mom said she didn't know that we had soccer today. And so I would get out my notebook, which this is what I brought today. I'll probably keep this the rest of my life because I'm so proud of it. But this is every correspondence that we had. I actually have 2 of these. I have one that's strictly for the attorneys, and it was all the attorney documents. And then this is all of our emails and text messages over the years. But when the kids would come and say like, well, you didn't tell my mom we had soccer, I would open it up and I would say, well, here's the email where I sent your mom the schedule on this day. And so she was aware that you had soccer. And the reason I would do that is because I was already the bad guy in so many arenas. And I was already always the one who was looked at as like, I mean, it's weird when you think about like the roles of Cinderella, but like I felt like the stepdaughter. Like I felt like I was being treated like the daughter in the situation and not the stepmom. And it was really, really, really hard. But over the years, like this is actually what saved us. I think the night before we were supposed to go to court, my attorney had this and had presented it to their attorney, and she backed down after, I think it was 6 years of going back and forth. Who knows how much money we spent, but she backed down and pulled the case the night before court. And I still to this day think that this is the reason. Like, I documented everything. And even as the kids got older, and the correspondence thankfully got less, I still documented everything because I was just not going to, one, be called a liar, and two, I just always wanted to have my facts. And so I joke that I learned the word like keeping receipts from the housewives. And that is one of the things I do. I will always have receipts, and I document everything. One of the hardest emails I ever got as a step parent was back, it's in this notebook too, but she had gotten really upset. Their mom got really upset about something. I don't even know what it was, but she sent this really long email. And in the email, she basically said that one of the kids had said that they hated me and that they wish I was dead. And when I read the email, of course, my heart broke because I'm like, that's pretty harsh. Like, that's not. 2 weeks before this had happened, we were sitting around the dinner table, and the same kid had said to me, they were at their grandmother's, which, fun story. She actually was our neighbor for the first couple years of our marriage. They were at their maternal grandmother's house, and the grandmother said that she hated me. And they, of course, run home, and they're like, Amy, grandma hates you. And I was like, what? No, she doesn't. And they're like, no, she said she hated you. And I was like, wow, that's pretty harsh. So then when this email came through, I think there was a whole list of things that she was basically bashing me for as their stepmom. But when I read the words that this one kid hated me and wish I was dead, or it was either I wish I was dead or I wish I would die or something along those lines. I remember, I think it was the first time I looked at my husband and I'm like, I think I have to just leave for a little bit. I think I can't do this. And if this is how your kids are going to go talk to her about me, like something has to happen, because I'm the one, here I am. Like, I think that same week I bought all their school party stuff, and I was like bouncing from, classroom party to classroom party with a baby on my hip and all. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like, this is not going to work for me. And so we had a really long conversation. He had a conversation with the kids. I actually did leave for a couple hours just to get some relief. But, that was a really good conversation that we had. And the kids, were like, we never said that. And, it was the beginning of a lot of things unraveling and a lot of us coming together and having more understanding. And as they got older, we had normal teenage problems. A couple of them were worse than others. But I remember thinking, like, step parenting's not so bad now. Like, we went through the hard part. I really, really feel like I was brought in their lives for a reason. And even as I got older, I mean, when we would have text conversations, like, I saved all the kids' text. And if we were in the middle of an issue, I saved all their emails and all their text messages. And mainly because this is not an easy task. And so when people say, like, oh, I'm getting married to so-and-so and they have 3 kids, my heart sinks a little bit, because it's a very, very hard road to navigate, and it's not for the weak. People would say to me in the beginning, well, you knew what you were getting into. He had 5 kids. And I'm like, that's the worst thing you can say to a stepmom or a step parent in general. It doesn't matter what we see on the outside until you're in it. You don't know. I didn't know what crazy was lying behind those doors for me to step into. I didn't know how traumatic it was actually going to be. I didn't know how much emotional support these kids would need outside the normal day-to-day life. Like, these kids all needed things on such a different level than I at the time was prepared for. And so I tell people when they ask me about dating someone with a kid or how that works, I always say, like, go into it with an open mind, but knowing that you don't know it all, and it's not going to be all rainbows and sunshine. Like, it's not like we had great times, and I wouldn't change anything of their childhood, but they were very young when we got married, and it was a lot. And there were a lot of people on the outside I also think too, if you can learn to shut the outside out and not let them into your inside, into your internal family, it will make a huge difference. When I put my foot down with my mother-in-law and said, you don't control my kids' schedules, like you need to come through us to make plans, it was not always well received, but it helped us internally because we as a family could make plans and we weren't being dictated by someone on the outside. And we parented our children very differently than the rest of the family. And that was something that we held pretty solid to, and we kept internal as well. That I just felt like that was the only way I knew how to do it and to make it work, was to shut out those outside voices that really didn't matter at the end of the day. So I love my stepkids. In the divorce, that was probably the hardest part, is I was not expecting there to even be conflict of like, are these still your kids? Like, they were my kids from day one, I felt like, and I never imagined them not being in my life. And as things have changed, there's two that I'm no longer close with, that I don't speak with. And that's okay. Like, that's their choice. And I have no hard feelings towards them. The three that I am very, very close to, we have a great bond and we've been through a lot of things together, and I wouldn't want things to be any different. So I'm very grateful for that. I also believe having a child together really helped glue our family together in ways that I couldn't have imagined. She holds a really special bond to hold all of the kids together. So people ask me, I'll finish with this. People ask me, if I knew then what I know now, would I do this again and be a stepmom to 5 kids? And the answer is absolutely not. And I'm so grateful that I didn't know back then what I know now, because I wouldn't want it any other way. Like, I love these kids, and I actually do love being a step parent at the end of the day. It makes you very cautious going into another relationship. And one of the rules I've always said moving forward in the stage of life that I'm in is I will never date someone who both parents are not fully involved in their kids' lives, and that they don't have a mom that's really, really good, because it is not my job to parent another child. I actually don't want to parent any more children. I want to be a part of someone's life and grow with them and like help and guide them. But I want them to have 2 parents that are very involved in their lives and want the best for them, where I'm not battling the other parts. Like, I will never date a man whose the mom is a constant battle. I just don't have the energy for it anymore. And I just think it's unnecessary. So I always tell people, go in completely open-minded and completely knowing that, like, I do believe I was made for this role. For whatever reason, this is where God wanted me to be. And I have learned so much from all of these kids, and I love these kids so much. They've taught me a lot about who I've become. Like, they're a huge part of that, and what love looks like. And if nothing else, I think I've taught these kids what unconditional love looks like, and that they can have it from an outside source. So when people ask me what advice would I give step parents, one, document everything. I don't care what your attorney says, document everything. It does pay off, I promise. And, don't bash the other parent. I see that happen a lot. And I think that that's just, it's a bad look for you, but it also does not serve the children in any way, shape, or form. And be truthful, be open. Like, there were multiple conversations we had to have where I'm like, this is hard. Today sucks, like, this is really hard, the role I'm in. And, I was okay with that. I was okay with them seeing me as not being perfect and not having it all together all the time. So that's the advice I would give. Also, try to form a decent relationship with the ex. Some people are best friends with the exes, and that's great. Definitely not the case in my situation. Moving forward, it's probably going to have to be a little bit more cordial of a relationship in order for it to work, and for me. But I think too, like, taking the pride out of it, like, we coming into a step parent role, there's already emotions involved with that. But I think we have to take our ego out of it and come in just as a human being and understanding like this is a new territory for you as well. So if you're joining the step parent world, welcome. And also lots of hugs, and just be okay with knowing that it's not always going to be perfect. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here and for choosing to be a little louder, a little braver, and a whole lot more you. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love it if you subscribed, left a review, or shared it with someone who needs it. Until next time, keep tuning in to the fire inside. Stay unquiet.